always get
All
that.
right, it looks like it's 7 o'clock, so we will call to order for the Poquoson Planning Commission for Monday, August 16th. And we will begin the meeting by having the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we will say the Lord's Prayer as an invocation. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come,
thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive
Forgive
us
us our trespasses, as we forgive those who
power and the glory forever.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular session from July 19th. And is anyone prepared to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion that we approve them. I just read them. They look good.
I'll second that motion to approve the minutes.
All right.
Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan, Commissioner Griebel, Commissioner Deaver,
Abstain.
Commissioner Fenixon, Commissioner Shriver,
Aye.
Chairwoman Emmett.
Aye.
Motion does not pass with only 3 votes.
It can pass because a majority of those present is here.
Okay.
Now, at this time, we would like to welcome an audience for visitors. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to come up and address the commission. This would be for any items other than what would be on the public hearing. Okay. And as I see none, I'm going to close the audience for visitors. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing. It is a resolution recommending approval of a conditional use permit for the operation of Mayor's Exterminating DBA, Mayor's Contracting, and Mayor's Heating and Air at tax map parcel 18-1-56. And Tom, do you have a presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Tonight, brief presentation for you about this conditional use permit. The applicant's Bay River Enterprises LLC to operate those businesses you just mentioned, Mayor's Exterminating, Mayor's Contracting, and Mayor's Heating and Air. The reason they need a conditional use permit is that they're a general contractor and they're asking to open in the B2 district. And the code says that requires them to get a conditional use permit. Here's the code section 10-2, and under the uses, you can see plumbing, electrical, mechanical, home improvement, painting, general contractor shops, and storage yards. So that's why they're here this evening. In your presentation, you'll see the proposed location indicated by the arrow in that vacant lot, and that's the lot to the left of where the flower shop is. 5 conditions of the permit, Madam Chair, and they're as follows. The use must comply with all local, state, and federal permits, licenses, and regulations. If at any time this use is operating in violation of any of the regulations set forth by the aforementioned agencies, the City Council may revoke the permit. The second is that the hours of operation are to be from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Site plan approval is required with all applicable regulations before the construction of the business. Staff is currently reviewing the site plan. The fourth is that at any time within the specified permit, the use is discontinued for a period of 2 or more years, the permit becomes null and void, and that council reserves the right to review and amend the conditions of the permit as they see fit. I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Yeah, I have some questions. what type of equipment will be stored on the parcel?
Well, after conversations with the applicant, he informed me that, and he'll be able to correct me during the public hearing if I misspeak, that 90% of this business would be the exterminating. So that'll be the primary nature of the business. And if you look, I believe I included in your memo, he'll primarily have 4 office staff at this building, a manager, and, himself, but most of his fleet, I'll call them, for the 3 businesses, work by technology. So most of them won't even be coming in and out of the building on a day-to-day basis.
So there won't be any chemicals stored on site?
I think the applicant will be able to answer that question for you.
Okay. And the other question is the ingress and egress. So I notice on the photograph, there are 2 curb cuts there.
Right,
With Creek, as I know, is a really busy street, and you've got 2 curb cuts on the other side of With Creek.
right.
Will there be opportunity for the 4 staff people to actually turn their vehicles around in order to back out?
There's an ample amount of parking in the site plan that we're currently reviewing,
Okay.
and we'll take that into consideration in that process.
Great, thank you.
So there will be a building that is going to be built there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the reason we had them come this evening is because of the future use on that property.
Right.
And with that, the conditional use permit, there would be no reason to construct the business.
Right. I stopped by the particular lot and saw it, and just wanted to know, are they going to be actually building a building and so forth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you guys stated that you would approve their plans once they submit them?
They've been submitted, yes, sir, and they're currently in the review process.
Okay.
In the site plan, the laydown for materials will not cause any problems with the flower shop?
I'd have no reason to believe so.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions before we open the public hearing? Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing for the resolution recommending approval of a conditional use permit for Mayor's Exterminating, DBA, Mayor's Contracting, and Mayor's Heating and Air. And if you do wish to speak, please just state your name and address for the record.
Can you speak to the microphone?
Yes, please.
And good evening. My name is Thomas Mayers, 891 Yorktown Road here in Poquoson. And to address your one question with chemical storage, we are going to have some product storage there on site, no more than we currently have at our location at 891 Yorktown Road. So not a significant storage, just enough that the technicians can use within a week's time. So not major storage facility. As far as the parking goes, I think in our site plan we have plenty of emergency vehicle clearance on the right side and around back, so that's not going to be an issue either. So
You said 20?
I know there's at least, I think, 50 feet on the right-hand side. I was told by the engineering department that they have to be able to get an emergency vehicle in and
Right.
out of that property,
Yeah,
so
okay, yeah.
there'll be plenty of driveway there. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have. Nope. Thank you.
Does anybody have any comments or concerns or discussions? I can say that I spoke with Ken Somerset earlier today because I also had a concern about the chemical storage. I drove by your previous place and there's a sign in the window that says hazard, there's these chemicals, so if there's a fire, it could have some fumes. And Ken assured me that there are a lot of regulations about how you store those, the quantities, the types, and that's all going to be hand in hand through your building inspections, and also you would have at least annual inspections.
And the fire department comes out and we have those inspections, and then we have inspections regulates the sale and usage of pesticides in the state of Virginia.
Something that I've noticed, I drove by the lot, I have also driven by the current location, and just observations is I have not seen a fleet at the current location. It almost looks more like an office, more of an office application than an industrial application. I know that the HVAC and contractors and more of the industrial businesses is specifically spelled out as needing to have conditions, a conditional use permit to bring them into acceptance. I'm not exactly sure what the concerns of having the HVAC and contractors in B2 zoning are for sure, and what conditions we may need to introduce or not introduce to mitigate those concerns. And it seems as though this application is almost straddling the line between the offices, which are permitted in B2, versus more the HVAC contractors, more the industrial. So I think that's one of the questions that we may need to think about. Is this more of an office application or more of an industrial?
I think the fact that the trucks are going to be there coming in and out is more like a contractor than, say, an office where, you know, you might shuffle papers and have the books taken care of and stuff like that. I understand your concern with that, but based upon their present location, it's pretty tight there to get trucks and along with the restaurant and everything else. And it's really difficult to get in and out of there unless you back in. So I can understand them trying to move to a better location. And from what I understand, it's just the exterminating part of this that's going to be on Wythe Creek. So the air conditioning and other stuff that you mentioned will still be down on whatever it is, Yorktown Road.
And that's correct, and our intention for applying for the permit was,
Oh, would you mind going up to the microphone? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
That way everyone at home can hear.
Our intention for applying for the permit was for future use down the road. If, you know, we had that opportunity to continue to grow and utilize that space, we just didn't want to have to come back and ask for permission. We just figured we'd ask from the beginning. But initially, it's going to be the exterminating business that runs out of that office for the most part.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate you guys. I love to see local business do well, and you've got a wonderful reputation in the community for being a trustworthy and a really good business. My concern, two things, I echo Mr. Stevens. I know your current location is fraught with a lot of issues. My concern is just a statement you just said about future use. If you look at Wythe Creek, we do have, basically traditional business. In the future, it seems to me you are really at the end of the commercial district, so to speak. The flower shop lady is delighted to have you as neighbors, which is great. I notice on the other side of your boundary, there is an existing very thick hedge. And it's just an idea that, that hedge be somehow retained as sort of a buffer or a screen so that there's houses. Basically, it's a housing district that then goes on down that area, whether that might be a consideration within the site plan. If you are planning in the future to have more trucks coming in and out of that facility. And I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely, and we certainly will look at that and take that into consideration. I know that there are some fencing requirements that are included in our site plan per the city code to help with that. And then also that neighbor to the left that's in between us and the fire station, I believe they run some sort of business out of there or some sort. The several times I've driven by, I've seen trucks and trailers in the back as well. Being in a residential setting where we currently are, we're certainly very aware of our neighbors, and
Right.
we don't want to cause waves with any of our neighbors, residential or commercial. So absolutely, we're open to any consideration that, is reasonable, that makes sense to help mitigate any noise or complaints. But
Right.
again, we're pretty much Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, 7:30 to 5:30 to cover ourselves with the use of this permit. So no crazy weekends or,
Right.
late night, just normal standard operations, what we're doing now.
Mr. Mayers, could I ask you approximately how many trucks and trailers will you be having there? Do you
At that
anticipate?
location? Probably 10, maybe. Again, we're a service industry, so, our technicians, they get dispatched via, their iPads and iPhones. They go straight to their first job. The only time they come in is collect material, turn in paperwork, payments, stuff like that. We traditionally, before COVID, have had a staff meeting once a month. We've done that virtually the last 18 months now. But, I do anticipate, having that tradition open up again. So, once a month we'll have, 15, a
Meeting.
fleet of 15,
Do you, do the employees usually drive their vehicles home, or do they
They all drive them home.
drive them home?
And
So
go
they're not,
straight- yep.
right, they're not probably kept on site.
Correct.
I mean, for the most part, they're kept at home. So most times, there won't be a whole lot of vehicles there.
They're traditionally not. We typically have 1 or 2 spares. We park them behind our current shop now, just in the event of one breaks down or something, but we don't.
Because you don't see many out
Yeah.
at your current, I
No-
mean,
no,
they're,
ma'am,
they're
no.
pretty well,
If we're going to invest the
Yeah.
capital, we try to put it to use.
right,
So,
right. Because that is a small space, and I think if you had a bunch of vehicles around there, you sure would see them.
it'd be problematic, sure.
Yeah, yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Other comments, concerns, questions? Or is anyone prepared to make a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion to consider the resolution presented.
I'll go ahead and second the request for a conditional use permit.
And to clarify, you made a motion to approve the?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Deaver?
Aye.
Commissioner Fenixon? Aye. Commissioner Shriver?
Aye.
Chairwoman Emmett?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next we have an amendment to Article 8.3, the planned unit development waterfront. And Polly, all right.
This is, I guess you would say this is part 4 of our amendment of these articles. You'll remember, for those that haven't been here the last 2 times, that this was actually directed to the planning commission by the city council when we went through the legacy modifications back in 2019. We had some real problems trying to figure out landscaping requirements as well as some architectural requirements, because it turns out we really didn't have any definitions in the zoning ordinance that talked about what landscaping was, or any of those things. So we've already talked about updating the definitions. We've also talked about the general provisions for PUD, the PUD MU. What I've done tonight is I've basically rewritten the waterfront overlay district regulation based on the same sort of template that we used for the planned unit development mixed use. There are some differences, to be sure, between the waterfront overlay and the PUD, one of which is a 50-foot perimeter buffer is required in a waterfront, whereas only a 40-foot is required in mixed use. And I don't know exactly why. I can guess, though, is that a waterfront community is going to be more impacted, generally speaking, planned unit development, because you have things like marinas and boat storage and those type of things. So I have made one change from what I mailed out to the planning commission, and that is basically, in conversations with Ms. Bennington, I noticed that under the open space, she pointed it out, that we didn't really specifically reference the 100-foot resource protection area. I think it was implied, but nevertheless, we have included that language in there to be clear that we certainly are going to regulate that the way we always have. You'll notice the plantings. I'm not going into a great deal about the plantings, but I have in the past. Basically, Ms. Mixon applies this one canopy tree, two shrubs, and one canopy tree, two understory trees, and three shrubs. She routinely applies that. I've actually done the math, and we will never be more than 15 feet off of a one-to-one relationship. In areas where we are lacking 15 feet of trees, they'll plant it in non-woody plantings such as flowers and grass. If the area is over about 15 feet, what we would do is we would probably allow the shrubs to be less of a height at maturity, because the main thing we're going for here, as I've said before, is we're going for survivability. We don't want to just plant these things and, let them wither and die. We're looking for these plantings to grow up and mature and to hopefully become an asset to the city. The regulations are all in here. I'll be more than happy to take any questions you might have.
Wally, you mentioned, and I think you said it, but would you mind clarifying again about the RPA, the 100-foot?
Yes, more
And
than
then the
happy
50?
to. That would be under 8.3.5, I believe. Let me double check that and make sure. It's going to be under, let me get it front and back here. Under C, make sure I've got this right. Hold on just a second. Well, I see what the problem is. I don't have my updated language. That's the problem. Okay. Under C1, this would be 8.3.5 C1. And I'll read it to you. Areas deemed inappropriate for or not allowed to be developed, such as, but not limited to, land in the 100-year floodplain and significant drainage swells, major public utility easements, tidal and non-tidal wetlands, and here's the part I added, the 100-foot resource protection area buffer, and stormwater detention devices. So by doing that, what we've said is that we are also going to say that you're not within a 100-foot buffer, which Aaron would enforce anyway, but we put it in there just to be clear. I say Aaron would enforce it because she's our environment.
I don't see that language in our packet.
You won't see it in the packet because I added it today
Okay.
after our conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. We're not going crazy, Tom.
But I've also updated the recommendation to include that language.
And there's no additional buffer for the RPA areas. It's not, the 100-foot RPA and then an additional 50.
No, it's
That's
just
it,
a
the
100-foot. Right. Now, most of the time, your buffer, not all the time, but most of the time, your buffer is going to be sort of lineal towards the seaward part of the property. So you're basically going to have a non-developable, pretty much. But when you get back out of the RPA, we still want you to have a 50-foot perimeter.
Question for you, and you might be able to shed some light on this from just a land use perspective. Are there any areas that would be waterfront overlay district that are out of the RPA?
Probably not, because waterfront is really for things like marinas, boat storage, and we really don't have a PUD waterfront currently existing in the city. I don't know if anybody will be brave enough to undertake that in the future. But the closest thing we've got to it is probably the area down around Surf Rider, where you've got the mobile home units, you've got the restaurant, and you've got some marina facilities as well. That's probably about as close as we get to that. In the
What
city.
about the Browns Neck property?
Well, that's the other side of it.
Right,
Yeah, the Browns
right.
Neck too.
Yeah.
Right. We've had several inquiries about Browns Neck, but nothing's ever really come to pass at this point. But yes.
Logical location.
But I mean, it'd be on the waterfront because, I mean, that's the purpose of the ordinance is to provide for waterfront uses. You gotta have the water.
Yeah, the last time I saw down on Browns Neck, they had a sign up for sale for 4.1 million for the
Yes.
basically fenced-in area, which no one seemed to jump upon. And because of the other contaminants and stuff like that, that they would have to make environmental, EPA would have to approve and so forth.
Right,
So-
I believe that is the Moore property that you're
Yeah,
referencing.
yeah, it's more or less, it's a beautiful location, but unfortunately, if someone came in with a lot of money and wanted to develop it, then that would be a waterfront PUD, but it's going to take a lot of money.
It could be. It certainly could be. But as you correctly point out, there's a lot of other things going on at the property that have to be
Oh,
taken
yeah.
care of.
I have my boat right there, so,
I've got my boat in York Haven Arena. Not that we're here to compare boats, but mine's a small one, I can tell you that. But anyway, very familiar with the area. So.
Any other questions? At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing for the amendment to Article 8.3, Planned Unit Development Waterfront. And at this time, I see no speakers, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments or concerns before a motion is made? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the amended document with the information provided in the subsection 1, the 100-foot buffer, as mentioned by Wally.
Second it?
is that going to cover the whole resolution? All right?
Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Commissioner Deaver,
Aye.
Commissioner Fenixon,
Aye.
Commissioner Shriver,
Aye.
Emmett. Motion passes.
Next item on the agenda for new business is the election of the officers. Now, we do still have 2 commissioners that are out today, so thoughts about maybe postponing that one more month to see if we have, the other 2 have the ability to participate?
I have no problems with that.
We need a vote on that? Okay.
Who wants to make a motion?
I will make a motion to postpone the election of officers until the next meeting.
And I will second it.
Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Commissioner Deaver,
Aye.
Commissioner Fenixon,
Aye.
Commissioner Shriver,
Aye.
Chairwoman Emmett.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We are moving. All right, communications and correspondence. Wally, do you have anything?
Well, I want to tell you all something you've probably been wanting to hear for a long time. Is that
Speak closer.
I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you one thing that you've probably been waiting to hear. Legacy looks like they've got everything together. They paid their bonding and their fees. The site plan is up on Randy's desk right now, all 120 pages of it. And the subdivision agreement. So we probably going to be making progress on Legacy here before much longer. Maybe even see some building going on. Right now, we got obviously a cleared piece of property. So, And while we're at it, Legacy is grandfathered. So all this work that we're doing here, Legacy got it under the belt. So I just thought I'd mention that as well. As far as that, we're just doing our usual summertime inspections. Ms. Mixon and Mr. Fagans in our office are inspecting Legacy on a regular basis to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. So far, so good. We do have kind of a stockpile sitting back there, but we'll address that. I'll cede to Thomas or Aaron.
Thank you, Bobby. Today was the cutoff for your September meeting, and we will be having a September meeting. It'll be on the 20th, regular session at 7 o'clock. And that will be to consider one conditional use permit and two elected officers.
What's the start time?
7.
7?
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Great. Bonnie? Melton? Greg?
Before our next meeting, I'd just like to remind everybody at the table and at home, if school proceeds in person, school buses will be running before our next meeting. Mindful of that, I know we've had a long hiatus of no buses, but as of today, I believe it's still tentatively moving forward. So be mindful of the change. It's not just a 3-month summer change, it's almost a 2-year change for no buses. That's all I have. Thank you.
Lee?
Yeah, I have 2 items. One, I'm just thrilled to see the Poquoson Avenue sidewalks successfully installed over the summer. And I know Bonnie goes right by your house. I don't know if you've noticed people out there using it, kids on bikes. It's just, a long time coming, and it looks wonderful.
I'll be thrilled if they maintain them well, like they do.
Right.
They get awfully grown over.
But, I think outdoor exercise for our citizens, particularly in the era of COVID, we've seen a lot more people being outdoors for obvious reasons. So this is really a safe passage up and down that side of Poquoson Avenue. The other, and I'll try and make this brief, I guess it's a concern I have. I live down on North Lawson Road, as most of you may know, and so we're really close to the water. There's no crabs this year. They've disappeared. Every time I've gone out to my dock, there's no crabs. So, it sort of stimulated some thinking. The Phragmites, which is an invasive species, has completely dominated and choked our good native marsh vegetation. From what I understand, if you look in the history of Phragmites, it was actually used as thatch on old English crofter houses, so you know how strong it is. But the thinking is, obviously, a healthy marsh for Poquoson does lots of things. It's our flood mitigation from storms, and it's certainly our nursery for all of our crabs and our critters that our watermen depend on for their livelihoods. And so I just want to mention that. If you're out and about, just notice how pervasive this Phragmites has become, particularly along the waterfront edges of our city. And I don't have any recommendations or suggestions. I'm just saying it's there, and I don't know if it might be impacting our crabs. I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's some linkage there. Yes, sir.
All right. Thomas?
Nothing.
Nothing? Aaron? Nothing. Okay. The only thing I have is, I don't remember if it was the last city councilor meeting or the one previously. From what I understand, watching the replay, they voted to acquire some land for a park, more towards the western portion. I think that's great news and goes a step towards fulfilling one of our comp plan goals of having some a park in that area. So I'm excited to see what comes of that.
Yeah, should be good.
That's all I have. So unless there's anything else, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you.